Welcome to the Bouldering Progression Series. These videos are designed to help guide you through your journey and development as a climber on the bouldering walls. The series is split into several parts, with each part addressing a certain stage in your bouldering skill level. We'll go over the requirements needed to competently climb a specific grade range. This second video is for those who are comfortable with basic climbs and are ready to move on to V2s and 3s. One of the biggest differences between these versus V0s and 1s is the added level of variety and complexity. You'll see this in our following topics: hold types and usage, terrain, and climbing technique. Let's get started. The first thing you'll notice about V2s and 3s is the variety of different handholds. We're no longer pulling only on jugs. There are now 3 new types of holds you'll need to learn how to use: crimps, pinches, and slopers. Crimps are the smallest and oftentimes most intimidating looking handhold. However, once you develop enough finger strength, these will feel almost as good as jugs. Crimps are used with 3 to 4 fingers, typically 1 pad deep. A pad is the distance between knuckles on the finger. 1 pad covers from the fingertip to the first knuckle. For starters, crimps should be used in the half crimp position. This is a hold where the second knuckles are level with the first. The top half of the fingers are flat and forms a 90-degree angle with the bottom half. Pinches are one of my favorite holds because they utilize the thumb. This is all about how hard you can squeeze. Including the thumb generates a compression force on the handhold and enables you to use the hold from a variety of angles. Pinches are bigger than crimps and are easier to catch. Slopers are generally despised by the climbing community as they are the most difficult type of handhold to secure. The lack of a positive or in-cut pulling edge makes them hard to hold onto, and you never feel like you have a good grip. The general advice for holding slopers is to maximize your surface area contact by using your full hand, like you were trying to palm a basketball. Having a full flat hand spreads the friction force evenly and gives you less of a chance to slip off. Combine this hand technique with keeping your hips low and arms straight. This allows you to sink down into the friction contact area. You'll notice that these new holds come in different orientations. In addition to downward pulling, we have sideways pulling and upward pulling. To get a detailed explanation of how best to position your body for these different orientations, you can watch my Handhold Basics video here. With an introduction of new handholds also comes a new variety of terrain. For V0s and 1s, we were accustomed to climbing mostly on vertical walls. These next grades include 4 more terrain types: overhang, slab, dihedral, and arete. Overhang draws a lot of fear from newer climbers as it is the most physically strenuous terrain to climb on. The steepness level can vary anywhere from slightly overhung at 10 degrees to roof climbs over 50 degrees. Your success at climbing overhang terrain depends on a few factors: toe pressure, core tension, and hip placement. To get a better understanding of the techniques used for climbing steep walls, you can watch my video, Vertical versus Overhang, here. Slab is the opposite of overhang, where the angle of the wall is more than 90 degrees to the floor. This is a very different style of climbing. The holds aren't nearly as good as on vertical or overhang, so the climber has to rely on a separate set of techniques rooted in balance and friction. Dihedrals and aretes are fancy words for corners, where a dihedral is an inward corner and an arete is an outward corner. Aretes are climbed in the standard pulling fashion, but with the added component of compression. The protruding angle of the wall lends to additional techniques such as heel hooks to squeeze your body close and maintain position. Dihedrals can be very awkward terrain to navigate as the entire climbing method is almost all pushing based. This can be a boon for those who are still developing their pulling strength. Climbers have to use techniques such as pressing and stemming to inch their way up between 2 walls. There are 2 things you should remember when climbing dihedrals. 1. Try to keep both sides as level as you can, especially with the feet. And 2. Pressing, or pushing with the arm, is most effective when your shoulder is level or above the hold. Now that you're familiar with the new holds and terrains of V2s and 3s, let's go over the techniques you'll need to climb on them. The first is a hand technique called a cross. This is when you reach one hand over the other to the point where the arms cross paths. The cross is used mostly on traversing sections, where the climber goes to the left or right instead of directly up. It can be a very efficient way of climbing, as it saves you the extra movement of matching hands and shuffling laterally. A good way to spot a cross is to always look a few holds ahead. On this yellow V3, I see that hold 1 can be used by either hand, but hold 2 is definitely intended for the left hand. This gives me the option of crossing the right hand to hold 1 from the start, which frees up my left hand to go to hold 2. If you want a more in-depth look at the cross, you can watch my video, The Flow Formula, here. The next technique is a footwork method called the smear. This is a very useful skill to have as it translates well to a variety of different terrains and movements. I first learned how to smear while climbing slab. The lack of quality footholds doesn't mean that you don't have options. You can always use the wall. The smear is done by pressing the rubber on the bottom of your shoe against the surface of the wall. Just like with slopers, the increase in surface area spreads the friction force and gives your foot traction on the wall. Your foot can literally stick to the wall with just friction at the right angle. Here on this pink V2, I use 2 smears to walk up a blank section of the wall so I can get above the start holds. Our final technique is momentum generation. This is one of my favorite techniques as it is the foundation of dynamic climbing and opens the door to a whole new set of movements. V2s and 3s will start to test your threshold for moving dynamically by setting holds quite far apart. Unless you're very tall, these moves will be almost impossible to do statically. There are 2 keys to generating momentum. 1. You must compress and expand. Momentum is not generated from stillness, but rather from winding up. If you need to do a big move, sink down away from your target hold before exploding towards it. 2. You must move in one motion. The body has to be coordinated to move towards its target in unison. If one part is too rushed or too delayed, your movement will be cut short. If you'd like to know more about generating momentum, you can watch my video, Where Does Power Come From?, here. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and congrats on moving up another step in your climbing journey. If you'd like to see more techniques covered in future videos, please leave a comment below. Keep practicing, stay psyched, and until next time, move better, climb harder.